Welcome back to EK Shop. Today I'm going to talk to you about properly peening your pins for long-lasting knife handles. So, if you're trying to make a knife for yourself, for your friends, or you're trying to sell them, you want to make sure that handle is going to stay on that knife. Now, it's pretty common in the knife making world to attach your handle with epoxy and some kind of pin. However, some guys only rely on the epoxy for holding those handle scales on the tang, and that is a very bad idea. Right now, this handle that I'm working on has no pins in it at all. It is epoxied to the tang, and if I were to just smack it on the table, there is a good chance I might crack that epoxy and the scales would peel away. In order to keep that handle on there, that's what the pins are for. They are to resist the shear forces that can rip off your scales. So there are many ways to go about this, but usually I like to do this during glue up when I'm attaching the scales with epoxy and my pins. What I like to do is I'll put wax on the pins, epoxy everything up, have the pins in place, and then I let the epoxy cure. After the epoxy is cured, I'll come back with a little pin punch, and I'll gently tap those pins back out with a small hammer. In this instance, I am not relying on the epoxy for strength. I am relying on the epoxy more as a barrier against moisture ingress, right? We don't want water getting in between the handle and the tang of the knife. So in order to make sure we get a good peen, a good fit, we want some compression going on there in the pin material. You need to get what they call a tapered reamer. We don't want to use something like this, a countersink. Although they perform similar functions, the countersink leaves an undesirable dish around your hole. The countersink will make that hole too big. You'll never be able to peen your pin enough to fill up that hole. The tapered reamer is much more gradual, and it gives a more desirable shape to fill up with your pin. One thing to note, for best results, we want to be able to sand the pins flat after we're done peening, but we want to be able to be assured that we're not grinding off the pinned portion. So I just like to note, this handle is, the rough shaping is done. I'm actually ready to start progressively going up the grits and finishing this off. It is helpful if you clean out those holes. I like these little nylon brushes to do that. The next step is to take your pins and trim them so there's only, I don't know, maybe 30 seconds or so sticking out on either side of the handle. So this is way too much. So I've got to trim all my pins down. So something like that is what I personally go for. Some guys will do even less than that. I prefer having a little stick out. So maybe, like I said, this is maybe 3/32 of an inch or so, just under an 1/8 inch of stick out. So the next step is to actually start peening, and you only need a light hammer for this. I like this one. I think this is a 2 or 3 ounce hammer. It's great for this. This is one of those things where velocity is a little more important than mass. You need something to support your pin. I'm going to use the anvil on my vise. It's not huge, it doesn't weigh a lot, but we don't need a lot of weight behind this. Alright, now I quick laid a rag down on the anvil on my vise because my shop is pretty dirty. I don't want to pound nasty debris into the handle material. You just start with one side, flip it over, and now you can see it didn't mushroom over, it expanded in the hole. And now we can take it over the grinder, sand it flush, and these will stay like that forever. It's how handles were held together for thousands of years before epoxy was ever invented. One thing of note too I'd like to cover quickly is you want to be able to ensure you can't push the pin in either direction. That's how you know it's on there. And second of all, you don't want to go too long or too hard, or you can in theory start expanding the pin inside the handle all the way through, and if you're using wood, you're gonna split that handle apart. I can't tell you how many times I did that by accident. Alright, thank you for watching. This is how to properly peen pins for your knife handles. I'll catch you next time.